Fellas, with the advent of this baseball season coming up, I want to change the song just a tad bit. And so here it goes. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with no crowds. Watch the owners and the union send in their lawyers to begin the attack. Do they even care if the fans come back? For it's loot, loot, loot for their wallets. If they're not stuffed, let's see if I can get in there, who's to blame? For it's the strike in 81, the strike in 94, and I'll tell you what, guys, there's a strike in 22. Count me out of this whole ball game. I'm Chuck Lasik, and you're coming in hot. Back in the hot seat, I'm Chuck Lasik. To my left over here is Eric Pestilano, and to my right is the coach, Mike Perkins. And fellas, as I mentioned before, I don't want this to be all about the discord in baseball. However, I think it's one thing we need to address, and let's start off with you, Eric. Does baseball really have a problem when it comes to the confrontation between the owners and players?
First of all, I think it goes back to that wonderful, beautifully sung song at the top of our show.
Which was awesome, I might add.
Yes.
You guys weren't expecting that. No?
Well rehearsed. I think it went as well as it could have.
I wrote that.
Hopefully the camera wasn't on me because my jaw was dropped.
I almost dropped the mic. Like you alluded to, baseball's always had a problem with labor negotiations and issues. There was almost another one this time around, and it came down to the bitter end. I mean, obviously these are much different circumstances than the other ones before, but, you know, it all comes down to the paper that you so eloquently threw over your shoulder over there, and I'm glad they got it done, and they're going to be able to play some games. But you're right. Every time it comes down to negotiations, if there's one small thing that needs to be talked about, the players will blow it up. Yep. The owners will make it worse. And you're right. They're alienating all of us who are the fans.
It's not baseball unless there is some contention between owners and players. I mean, this is part of the history of our beloved game. And there's our grand old game, however you want to term it. Owners and players and owners have been at each other's throats and necks for years and years and years. So today is no different. So Chuck, the answer is, I know we'll discuss it a little bit more in depth as we move on. But I'll always be a baseball fan. I may not like what is going on between those two groups, but I want to go to the park. I want to go to the game. I want to have a brat. I want to have a hot dog. I want to see the boys this summer play, and that's, you know, I feel like I'm the typical baseball fan that loves to go to the park, loves to watch the game and take in what it's all about. And to me, when they allow the fans to come back into the stadium, they will be there.
I think just one other thing before we get into our viewers' questions. I mean, we saw back in 98 where basically baseball came back with McGuire. You had Sosa. Mm-hmm. Actually, Ripken, when he broke this or the consecutive game streak a couple years early, which started bringing fans back from that strike in 94. Does baseball really have the brains to market their stars now? I mean, I've said this before. Trout could walk down the street in the buff across the nation. No one would recognize him.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing. 98 was great. We knew McGuire. We knew Sosa. And, you know, the Cardinals are traditionally a great baseball a region in St. Louis out there. The rest of the country never cared about the Cardinals. The Cubs have always been nationally known, but still, you got these two guys who are coming in, and you know everybody digs the long ball. And now here we are. We have maybe the greatest player that we've ever seen, and there's not a whole lot of people that recognize him, and they need to step up and put him into the forefront.
I think each city has its own culture around its own baseball team. And I think, you know, if you go to a Minneapolis, St. Paul, or you go to a Chicago, you go to a Milwaukee, you go to a Detroit, you go to a Baltimore, you go to a Houston, they all have their own little cultures around their teams. And those fans will always be fans through and through. And it's bred generation to generation. It's the grandparents watch, and then the parents watch, and then the kids watch, and it's a lifestyle. It's a part of our culture and who we are as Americans. And I think it just kind of depends upon each community and the culture that surrounds their teams.
Well, let me throw this question to you two guys. You got two of the biggest players in the game last year, Mike Trout and Pete Alonso. Do you think that them having another team in their city that's got a lot more storied of a history has anything to do with it? Like, I mean, with Trout, obviously the Dodgers are the darlings in L.A. Let's be real. I think we all know that.
Yeah.
And in New York, it's the Yankees. It's not the Mets. Both teams have their fan bases, but when Pete Alonso's going up against the Yankees, does anybody care about the Mets? Everybody's looking at the Yankees, and out here, everybody's looking at the Dodgers.
True.
Yeah, but the lore behind the Yankees stems from the years and years of the ownership and all that went around with the Steinbrenner family. Those things lead into why people love or hate those types of teams.
That I agree with. What I'm saying is Pete Alonso not getting as much recognition because he plays in the city where the Yankees are?
Oh, for sure.
Well, yeah, that's, I think, apparent on basically the marketing department of both squads, too. I mean, the Mets, I mean, you have this next up-and-coming Dave. Don't even want to use Dave Kingman because that would be an insult almost to Alonso. But you have this kid that's hit 53 home runs last year. He's coming up. You really don't know too much about him. And I'm not sure if that's the way he likes it or not. But, geez, baseball has it right there on one coast. And then the other coast, we're sitting there about Trout. But half the country doesn't see him because it's 10 o'clock by the time this game starts.
Yeah, but
Well,
the Mets have never been about the advertising. The Yankees have always been about it,
Because
right,
they self-advertise.
right down to the pinstripes of the uniforms, and that's what that's the difference.
Well, and that plays to Chuck's point, though, about marketing individually for the teams. The Angels aren't doing a good enough job. The Mets aren't doing a good enough job. They're getting overshadowed by the other team in the
Agreed.
city. I get it right
Agreed.
now.
100%.
The Dodgers are a much better team than the Angels right now. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
Dodgers much better than everybody.
But Trout is the best player in the game by far, and nobody knows who this guy is.
We see it here in the Los Angeles greater metropolitan area. People are walking around Orange County in Dodgers gear.
Yeah.
Right? How many people do you really see wearing Angel stuff? Very, very, very rare for me to see somebody out in the public wearing Angel stuff.
Really?
Maybe a T-shirt here or there.
I was going to say, I see it. I just don't see it as much as the blue.
Not as much as the blue.
Yeah.
For sure.
Interesting. All right. Well, you know what? We got that pretty much out of the way right now. Let's get to some of the viewers' questions. Napster23 asks, who are the winners and losers of this shortened season schedule?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm going to come out of the gate here with a team that everybody has high expectations for and simultaneously has no expectations for every year for the past 5 years. And that's a team out here on the West Coast. That's the San Diego Padres. This is a team that loads up on talent and then goes flat and does nothing every single time. In a 60-game schedule, could they come out of the gate and next thing you know, they've won 20 games out of their first 40 or 20 games out of their first 30, and now they're in prime position in the West, and they beat the Dodgers? Probably not. Can they get a wild card in the National League now? Yeah, they can, because they're traditionally a team that does well to start the season, and then it's the back half in the last 100 games where they can't get anything going. They don't have to worry about that this year.
I have two answers, and I'm going to go a little bit of a different direction here. The losers are the fans in all this here. You know, the summer time and going to the game and going to the park, going to an afternoon game on a Saturday or Sunday, even a weekday afternoon game, which everybody
Business
loves
fan
to go
special,
to.
yeah.
The fans are the losers. But on the other side, the winners are. I gotta mention the Minnesota Twins, and I'm going to tell you why. And I'm not a Minnesota Twins fan. I'm not a hater, but I will say the Minnesota Twins, because they have a nice roster, they have a great outlook to this coming season, but they don't have to play the first month in April.
That's true. That's true.
a good point.
Bats stay hot. Yeah.
So
that's
they're gonna come out into Target Field, playing.
You love Target Field, from what I understand.
I do love Target Field. It's a great stadium and
That's
a
where the
great
mosquitoes are the state bird,
and a
right?
great
Yeah.
place. They are the state bird. A
Is it a
great
loon?
place to watch. It
Thought it was the loon.
Don't
It
start.
is a
Come
loon.
on.
Okay.
It is. But they're
believe
gonna
you brought
start
that
their
up.
games in 80 to 90 degree temperatures. They're not going to have to worry about playing a ball game at 42 degrees.
Yeah.
So I think a winner will be, and you could say that of Detroit. You could say that of Boston. You could say that of a lot of places, northern cities. They're going to be the winners of of this whole deal, especially if they have to play their first couple of months outdoors at their home field.
You mentioned Boston, and I actually think they're one of the losers of this whole deal.
I was going to say.
This is a team who traditionally gets hot in the back end of the season, and they're not a front-running team from start to finish. They were in 2018, but outside of that, they've been kind of just going to hang around, make sure everything goes okay, and then just come back and sweep you out in the back end of the season. They don't have that this year, and with no Chris Sale,
I was going to say, I don't have the horses.
Mookie Betts is gone. Yeah. David Price is gone. Price isn't even playing this year, but even so, he's a Dodger.
That's their benefit, though.
Yeah. But this is a team that needs the extra 100 games on the back end, and they're not going to have that. And I don't know how well they're going to do, especially with a team with the firepower in New York, and even a team like Tampa, who's very scrappy. The Red Sox could be finding themselves on the outside looking in by the time the season is over.
I was thinking they're going to be battling. No one's going to battle the Orioles for last place, but I think they'll be right above the Orioles. I'm going to throw a sleeper in for the winners, and I'm basing myself on last season, guys. Don't forget who was in first place in the West at the end of would be May last year, and that was right. That's the team up north.
Oakland.
Seattle Mariners.
Oh, Seattle, even further north. He went further north on me.
That's way north.
I mean, that's you're talking about just 60 games, and that team was you're giving around give or take a couple games here and there. Seattle, I think, definitely has a chance. I'm gonna leave my White Sox out of it right now because I'm unbiased. I'm trying to remain unbiased as possible, but in the National League, I kind of like St. Louis going up gate to gate in the Central. And who knows in the East? I mean, you have your Braves, of course, but then, you know what? Those Mets, though, I just have a weird feeling about them too. And who knows about the Phillies as well? So I mean,
first of all, everybody in the East Division and in both the American League and National League, I mean, they can be considered winners as a whole. I know I said the Red Sox were losers, but that's just looking at the whole scope of the season. But for the actual schedule itself, boy, if you're in the East and you get to play Baltimore and Miami.
You're jumping
for all those games. Those are going to help a long way. But everybody else in the East has to play them too, so it's going to balance out eventually.
No, I agree.
But it's going to hurt them when it comes playoff time because they won't be as battle tested. But could you imagine if Seattle plays San Diego in a World Series? The question would be is if they do and nobody sees it, did it happen?
Or would anyone care?
Care? The whole East Coast and the center part of the country would not pay attention. Yep.
Nope. It'll be a football season by then.
Yep. When does football start?
The way things are going in Seattle, who knows? Anyway, I'll leave the politics out of this right now. We'll go to our second question, and we got M. Blanchard. M. Blanchard on Instagram. Oh, my goodness.
Who allowed him?
I don't know. I don't type this stuff up, so here we go. Okay. M. Blanchard on Instagram asks, are the new pitching rules good or bad for the game? He's, of course, referencing the 3-batter minimum.
Oh, it's a legitimate question. Wow, I was shocked. I thought he was going to be razzing us.
Wow, okay.
But the commission came through with a decent baseball question. Iceman, I'll let you take it.
No, you can't let me take it.
I didn't think you wanted to.
No, you got to go on this one.
The 3-batter minimum to me, I'm on the fence about it.
Is it going to explain the rule first for our fans?
Yeah. If you're coming in to pitch, you have to pitch to. If you start an inning, at least 3 batters.
I don't like it.
If you come in the middle of an inning, you have to pitch until the inning is over.
Which is just absolute garbage.
Say you start a game and you pitch 6 1/3. The next guy who comes in has to, at minimum, pitch the last 2/3 of that inning or 3 batters. So if he gets the first 2 guys out, he doesn't have to come back in the next inning. He can just do those 2. But the idea was to limit the amount of pitching changes, to which I say it's probably going to have the adverse effect. Mm-hmm. Because once the inning is over, you're going to be able to change pitchers. Now, it's going to happen during commercial breaks. So, I mean, that's going to cut down the time anyway, but it may not limit the amount of pitching changes, but it'll limit the time that it takes to make a pitching change.
Well, that to me is really the issue at heart, right?
Yeah.
Is that, you get a situation in a tight game and, you get a righty batter up and they want to bring in a lefty pitcher or vice versa. And it just takes time, to get the guy out of the bullpen, get him, obviously he's been warming up in the pen, but once he gets in, he wants to take his pitches. How many pitches can they take nowadays?
8.
8?
Unless there's an injury.
Unless there's an injury. Okay,
Yeah.
so you got to come in. You got to go through the motions of that. And
But when I say there's an injury, how many of these guys are going to fake an injury or have their coach going to tell them like, hey, just
yeah, but you can't keep going to that one. I mean, that's
They
that's
do
maybe
Rodney
that's maybe a
Dangerfield
that's
and
maybe a
Caddyshack. My arm, it's broken.
oh.
As he's moving it.
As he's moving it. Yeah.
But that's going to be a one-off here or there, because if teams keep going to that routine, they're going to be caught onto that. I mean, baseball's notorious for guys trying to stretch the rules and then all of a sudden having to somebody come in and stop it from happening. But yeah, I'm not a fan of this. I think it's a team's prerogative to try to navigate
you run your own roster.
and negotiate the situations the way the manager feels appropriate for that game. I'm not a big fan of this. I get the timeline concept, but as a baseball purist, doing something like this just takes away from what the game of baseball is and has been, and some of the fun of it, right? The manager actually has the ability to really make some changes and differences in a game by matching pitchers against batters.
See, and I'm not a purist, and I'm not a huge fan of this. You should be able to make your own decisions on when you want to pull a guy and put him in. So,
I think it's complete balderdash. Pardon my French, but it's rubbish.
I never knew that was French.
Yeah,
All right.
complete rubbish. Honestly, I think it takes away from the specialty type of pitcher. You got the lefty, you got that one guy that comes in and faces, the lefty that comes in to face that tough lefty.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, someone like National League coming in to face Alonso during a opportune time or an inopportune time and stuff like that. And then you go back to the righty. Who knows? But I just disagree with it. And I think it takes a lot of the thinking out of the manager's head, which could extend Rick Renteria's career even a little bit longer than the way it should
Shots fired.
Because that guy should
You
have
want
been
to
out
talk
of baseball
about
too.
Shots
people
fired.
that nobody know. Only people on the south side of Chicago know who Rick Renteria
Well, they knew him on
is.
the north side before Madden came in and won the World Series. So, I mean, it shows you a lot right there. But anyway,
Yeah.
let's move on
Whoa.
to question number 3. And I think, you know what, this kind of leads into this because this is going to bring something else up and a further question. Cody Connors wants to know, what are your thoughts on the universal DH? Go ahead.
I'm not a fan of that either.
Really?
I've never really been a fan of the DH. I think that position is, you got two sides to it. You have the ability for one player to really come in and make a difference. You DH a guy late in a game, and his hitting ability can change the face of a game. I've always been okay with it in American League because it just kind of was there. As far as the National League and the small ball game and the concepts of the National League, I've always been a fan of that too. So to make it universal across the board, I don't like it. I think a player has to be a ball player. So you got to be able to get on the field and play a position at the end of the day.
I've got 2 lines of thought here. The first one is, for this season, I'm fine with it. I get it. The pitchers, every pitch they throw is going to be so much more important in a shortened season. You don't want them to have to worry about hitting right now, especially with a limited time to get ready for the shortened season. So it's fine this year. In the long run, no, we don't need a universal DH. Look, I'm all about
really. We haven't coddled the pitchers enough already, Eric.
Hey man,
Really?
They're the
You know
ones
what?
going out there
You
winning
guys aren't
games
gonna
and
like
winning
my
World
response.
Series.
Seriously,
Look,
to
look.
me, it's almost embarrassing the inability of a pitcher to be able to hit a baseball. It's embarrassing.
Let me just say, from an entertainment standpoint, somebody who is not a purist and who loves to see change in the game regularly, I love watching a pitcher going up there and failing miserably at hitting. I think it's the funniest thing that's ever in a baseball game, that you can watch this guy trying to go up there and hack.
Absolute joke. Like, seriously, guy,
Well,
go do some tee work. Take some soft toss. Do something to improve your ability to swing a bat at a baseball. I get it. The pitchers are unbelievable because, of course, you are, because you're in the major league. But you would think that a pitcher would have some idea about how to hit because he's a pitcher.
There's also nothing more hilarious than an American League pitcher trying to hit a baseball.
Hey, Mark Burley hit a home run once, so don't leave it alone.
I've always loved.
What did Bartolo
to see-
Colon?
He's hit one too.
I've loved to see a pitcher come in and get a good at bat in when everybody in the crowd thinks this guy can't do anything.
If they would just at the minimum learn how to bunt, that'd be great. At
And
the
that's
bare
not tough.
minimum.
And that's not tough.
Apparently
That's just
apparently
good.
it is.
That's
Watching
just good.
these guys
That's,
try to
that's
do
just
it.
good hand position, good footwork.
I will say though that for this season, the National League is going to love this. They're going to love it. I have always felt that the National League playing with the DH rule is just far and away a bigger advantage than the American League doing it because you're taking away the double switches, and now you get an extra hitter in your lineup. How can you not win every game like that? Obviously, that doesn't prove to be true because the AL is used to it, but I think this is great for the National League, and they're going to love this all season long.
Well, I just wonder, as we mentioned, that the negotiations coming up in 2022, could it lead to the Players Union asking for that extra 26th player on the roster if they add the universal DH?
Yes.
Basically taken away from the pitcher.
Yes.
I mean, that's something else you have to think about right there.
All of those, yes. That's going to be a bargaining chip.
You're going to sit one guy in the dugout. He's going to sit at the end of the dugout eating seeds for the majority of the game. You're down by a couple of runs. End of the game, ninth inning, you got one or two at-bats left to try to make something happen. You walk him off the bench out to the, and let him rip away at it because he can't do anything the rest of the time.
That's how the Red Sox broke the curse.
Yep.
Dave Roberts didn't hit in that game, but he sat in the dugout the whole game, and they put him out there to pinch run. He swipes a base. He gets knocked in. The rest is history. The guys have been sitting on the bench the whole game for as long as time has been around before they came in the ninth.
My only thing is I think the only one that's really going to affect is Madison Bumgarner of the Arizona Diamondbacks now. He's the only pitcher
that sounds weird.
I know, doesn't it? But he's the only pitcher that really can hit these days, honestly. I can't think of too many other hitting pitchers, honestly.
There's a few out there in the NL who can rake a little bit.
But honestly,
nobody regularly.
All right, let's move on to our next question. Brando Lorian asks, how happy are the Dodgers that they didn't trade for Jock Peterson for a utility guy? Then learning the NL will have a DH here in 2020.
I like how that question is worded. How happy are they that they didn't trade Jock Peterson? Like they didn't try to.
Well, they tried
and
to.
It got nullified.
I know. We were.
Look, my first concern with them is what's the chemistry going to be like now that this guy was basically told we don't want you anymore, but because of physicals and all that, you get to come back, and now it's like, oh hey, welcome back.
I'm sure 30-10 can cure that real quickly, though, too.
Well, yeah, it might. I mean, they have a very deep outfield. He's listed as second on their depth chart in 2 positions in the outfield, so he may not start.
And even a first baseman, too.
But I think at the end of the day, as a professional athlete, you have to know that there are potential to be talks and conversations about you throughout a season, potentially of being traded or moved or however you want to look at it. So I mean, and then in the off season, of course, people are looking to change rosters up depending upon how their season went or what they're looking to do for the following year. So listen, this guy's a professional. I mean, he's got to understand that sometimes things work and sometimes they don't. So anyway,
I will say that I think the Dodgers are fortunate that they still have him around so he can be a DH. Because now that lineup.
Hey, he's making money as long as he's making the money that he wants to make. He's going to go play baseball. He doesn't care what team it is.
He cares what team it is anyway.
Yeah, but I don't mean this is this day and age. You know, I mean it's not like a guy that would play for. It's not Cal Ripken. I'm sorry.
My 2 cents before we move on to the next question. They're loaded already. I just think it keeps them loaded and gives them. He's only going to play. He's left-handed, so. Face righties maybe 3/4 of the time. He'll play 45 games and come off the bench as a pinch hitter from that point. But still, I think it's a boom for the Dodgers, and just a tribute to the phenomenal depth that club actually does have. All right, let's move on to question number 5 from Facebook. Matt Ward asks us, who are some of the prospects that you expect to make an impact on this season?
I'll start out west. It seems to be the brunt of our audience. Let's talk about the Angels a little bit. Joe Adell, I think, is going to be one of the guys that everybody's going to look at. It's always the outfielders with the Angels, isn't it? Here's a guy who's had some injuries, injury problems the last year and a half or so. He did not hit a home run when he was down in the minors last year. But he hit his way for average back up into the bigs, and he's got some potential to go out there and crack that lineup for the Angels this season. And in this shortened season, how much playing time is he going to get? I'm not sure, but in the future, this is a guy who's got a chance to make a name for himself and be that number 2 guy to Mike Trout.
I think we already have the third baseman coming in there being the number 2. He can comfortably end behind Pujols. I think he can comfortably come in at 4 or 5 where the onus is not on him, and I think that will help his development as he moves forward.
Are you talking about Matt Thaiss?
No, I'm talking about Joe Adele. Were you talking about Matt Theis?
Oh, you said
No,
third.
no.
Yeah.
Basically, I mean, they already have 3 stars ahead of that already, so he doesn't have to be the number 2 guy right away because
He can be, but he doesn't have to be.
Yeah, he doesn't have to be.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't have any names off the top of my head of prospects, but what I can say is this: is that I love college baseball. You know, as much as I love MLB, which I do, I grew up on it. It was what I watched. It's what I cared about as a kid. I really learned to love college baseball, and there's so many great prospects in college baseball now. And if you're a fan and you have not experienced college baseball, just turn on the TV, find a game that's playing. These guys they play as hard as they can. They're trying to make it up the ladder. And if you want to see good baseball, any
sound American baseball.
Yes, sound American.
Without the ping, with the ping included.
With the ping included. Obviously, they'll have to change things over when they become professionals. But I am a huge fan of college baseball, and I love to watch it.
Well, Chuck and I both went to Cal State Fullerton, so we are very aware of
baseball
what good
factory.
college baseball
I'm not a
looks
Titans
like.
fan, by the way.
You're not a Titans fan?
Wow.
No.
All right, let's.
Well,
move the
it's been
camera
great
over
having you
there.
on.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
That's it. Cameras are cut
But
right here.
I can't say much because I've always been a Big Ten fan, but Big Ten does not have great baseball.
Yeah, not particularly. Sticking with the theme of the West, Mackenzie Gore, pitcher down there for the Padres, guy who can make an impact here in this shortened season if he gets a shot. And then for you, Mr. Lasik, Luis Robert.
Louis Robert.
I'm going to tell you this right now. I think this guy has a chance to be the next Frank Thomas for that organization.
I was going to say next Mike Trout, but okay. I agree. If you saw it on YouTube maybe on Saturday, he hit 2 baseballs out of the yard totaling 900 feet. And if you saw the one he pulled to left field, he put it on the last seat before the concourse, which is about a 475 shot.
Yep.
So he has the speed, he has the tools, he can field. Frank could never field, but I think this kid's going to be roaming center field for Chicago for a long time. And I think he is the linchpin in the rebuild.
Sadly, I agree with you.
Now let's move on to a topic you're a little more familiar with. Boston native 57 asks on Twitter, "How will my Red Sox do this season?"
Oh, that's a
I
very
think
familiar Twitter handle.
we've already touched on that one.
That's a very familiar Twitter handle.
If you make 20 wins, I'd be shocked. I'll tell you right now, they're Boston native 57. I think the Red Sox, with the loss of Betts, with the loss of their ace Chris Sale, all right, 23. 23 is my over-under on victories for Boston this year.
I'll take the over on them. I think they'll win 30 games.
You think they're going to go 500?
Yeah, I think they'll go 500.
Okay.
Is it enough to make the playoffs? Probably not. But they're gonna hover around there. They'll be okay. They're not gonna be world beaters like they usually are, and they are not gonna race for a World Series title this year. Not in the cards.
I've never been a Red Sox fan, and I never plan on being a Red Sox fan. So
As much as
if they lose, it's not going to hurt my feelings. Let me just put it that way.
You both hurt my feelings. So.
All right, here's another one.
True colors are coming out here today.
Here's another one that hits home, unfortunately, to my left. Jason Bowen on Instagram wants to know, why would anybody in their right mind root for the Braves or the Yankees?
I half agree with that question.
Okay, yeah.
I think we know my feelings on the Bronx Bombers. I've been an Atlanta Braves fan my entire life. This one, I just felt something. Oh, it was probably in the back more than anything. But, I mean, come on. Atlanta's got the prestige, even though we haven't won anything in the last... Yeah, I'm saying we.
30 years. 30, 29?
25.
You're saying we.
I am saying we. I am a big we guy. Y'all know that.
Yeah. He has
I'm a
8
big
teams.
we guy.
He has 8 or 9 teams, so he can sit there and we
All right.
across the league. So it doesn't.
Who's
make a
your favorite
difference.
player all time?
All right.
Is that
Chipper
a-
Jones.
Okay.
Chipper Jones is my favorite player
fair
all
enough.
time.
Fair enough.
Dale Murphy's my
New
top
broadcaster, too. Get to listen to him call games this year. I'm excited. I've been a Braves fan my whole life. I will always be a Braves fan.
Courtesy of WTBS too. Yeah, that's what happens when you go. Mr. Turner goes national.
Well,
on
and
those games.
that's what happened. If we're being honest, I grew up with a bunch of Angels and Dodgers fans out here in Southern California. All they did was talk about how great their team was and the Angels, the Dodgers, and I was like, no. I'm not rooting for all that because I'm not all that pompous about it. So I had 2 other choices of teams I could watch regularly. That was the Cubs on WGN, or I could watch the Braves on TBS.
Sox were on there once in a while.
And I enjoyed the sitcoms on TBS when I got home from school every day. And then it was immediately followed by the Braves games, so I watched the Braves more. Became
Because
a Braves fan.
of
That's the end
TBS,
story. TBS.
there are fans of the Braves
Yep.
around this country. But the reverse is also true. Because they were on TV, there's plenty
People
of
don't like
people that don't like the Braves.
That is correct.
That that to me is the
Oh,
essence.
how could you not love Dale Murphy at the time? You were barely alive, but yeah, that's.
Yeah, no, I didn't get to watch Dale play. I'm aware of Dale, but I didn't get to watch him play.
The Braves have had plenty of great players, but as far as the Yankees go, the truth of the matter is that they've been loved because they've won. It's as simple as that.
Evil empire.
Yep, and
Right, bandwagon 101.
well, there's been plenty of people that jump on the bandwagon. I'm not one of them.
You know what? Hi guys. You're not
What?
gonna like me for this.
What's about to happen?
No. I'll tell you what, I've softened my stance on the Yankees. Honestly, the Red Sox are my most hated fans right now, honestly. I can actually go to an Angels any other
he's
game.
just doing this to get you going.
No, I can go to an Angel game without
Eric,
worrying
he's
about
lying, by the way.
getting beaten into submission by a Yankees fan as compared to a Red Sox fan, honestly. I just think that the Red Sox, and no, I'm just saying.
And?
The Yankees the fans used to be that pompous, but I think they were brought down a little bit. But it's also the youth movement. I mean, Aaron Judge is a stud. I love Aaron Judge. I think he's the greatest thing to happen to New York since Mickey Mantle.
Listen, it's a
He's
little.
a California boy. So
I know.
Part of the reason why
I have a tie.
Part of the
to him
reason why the
somehow.
Yankees are hated is it's the culture of New York. The brash people and walk down the street of Manhattan and somebody flips you off. I mean, it's just what New York
they're not
is.
opening their wallets as much
But
as they were.
there's some people that love that, and they love that team through and through, and they'll
except Garrett Cole. I forgot about
they'll
that.
go to their grave wearing their Yankees jersey, and I'm sure there's plenty of people that have.
Anyway, Jason's correct. Why would anybody in their right mind root for the Yankees?
Oh, when you have some on your fantasy team, sometimes you have to. So.
I do, and I still don't.
All right, I think that's going to conclude it for this week. Next time we come together, Eric's going to be in the hot seat. Eric, your topic's going to be?
Hey, we're going to talk about basketball, and this is something that Chuck and I have been screaming at each other about off camera for the last month.
I can't wait to get
Wrong.
in.
So here's what we're going to do.
Wrong.
We want you to go to Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter and post your questions about basketball. This is going to be a this or that. We want you to pick rivalries. Who would win if these two teams in these two separate years got together? Which player's better in one-on-one? Who's the greater player all time? Give us the matchups you want us to talk about, and we know what one of them is going to be, and that's what's going to get us started. And
there's going to be punches
there
thrown.
may
I
be
guarantee punches
there
are
may
gonna
be a
thrown.
physical altercation.
Yes,
there may be.
Absolutely, because how anybody could think LeBron's better than MJ, I have no idea. And I think we should have him pee in a cup right here and have it tested right away. So, just saying, right off the start.
He's already getting it going.
Yeah, already, and that's a good teaser for our next show.
Exactly.
So don't forget,
Cups will be aligned.
you can go to Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter at CIH Media and pose your question, and you'll see them right here on the show like we did with everybody else here today.
Well, I guess that has us covered right now. So once again, I guess that's going to do it again for this episode. For my partner on the left, that's Eric Pessolano. For my partner on the right, the coach, Mike Perkins. I'm in the hot seat. I'm Chuck Lasik. Reminding you, tune in next time right here on Comin In Hot. We'll see you next time, everybody.